So episode 5 of My Hero dropped a while ago, and it launched us full swing into the clash between Class A and Class B. With the first round won by Class A, Class B definitely has a point to prove, and I can't wait to dive into all the key moments of this episode. Just before I get started though, I will say I have read the manga and I'm aware of future plot points and details. But for review purposes, I like to focus strictly on the story being told in the anime. It saves me from comparing back and forth between the anime and the manga, and allows anime onlys the chance to watch a review without getting spoiled on what comes next. And with that little disclaimer out of the way, let's jump into it. We pick up straight from where we left off last episode, with Class A's team victorious. Despite this though, we get a pretty stern Aizawa immediately confronting his team on what they could have done differently. And honestly, by his expression, you could have sworn that they'd lost. Obviously, it's a good method because it forces the class to always look at how they can improve themselves. And there were certainly stumbles along their path to victory, but still you'd hope Aizawa would give them a little more credit. To be fair to Aizawa though, his students largely have the same mentality, focusing heavily on where they could improve and being disappointed where they went wrong. Apart from Kaminari, of course. Even Shinso seriously hard on himself, which is easy to understand. You wouldn't be able to help but compare yourself to people who look like they're at your level, but actually have so much more experience. Of course, Aizawa's a soft boy for Shinso, and he goes fairly easy on him. And I get serious All Might and Deku vibes with these two, and I really like it. Despite Aizawa being a pretty prominent hero, I guess, and having a class of 20 students that he cares a lot about, he still gives off these really lonely vibes to me, and he kinda needs this mentoring relationship with Shinso in my opinion. Likewise, Shinso really needs a guide, and their personalities are pretty similar, so it would be easy for them to relate and get on. Especially since Aizawa's quirk doesn't exactly scream hero material, just like Shinso's. They're a good pair, and it's good to see their development together. And it's not just Shinso that's being hard on himself. Both Kirishima and Froppy in particular look pretty beaten and disappointed to say the least, with Ayama even commenting on it. Sero elaborates how after their huge battle with Overhaul, it would be hard for them not to look at every battle with different eyes. It's kind of an eye-opener here. For the most part, we've watched Deku battle over and over against multiple villains, and he's always at the center of the conflict. Plus, with his sheer determination, he always takes victories and losses really seriously. And it's great to see this kind of mentality seeping into the other classmates, even if it is a heavy burden. Kirishima and Froppy are two heroes I really love, so it's great to see their development, but at the same time it's sad to see them feel so defeated despite them working so hard to win. And it's pretty greatly contrasted with Kaminari, who's such an airhead and so confident in himself, but surprisingly not in a typical arrogant way. And he always gets pulled down a peg pretty quickly, so I guess that doesn't really matter. And as if on cue, Aizawa gives some relatively brief but useful advice to his students, apart from Kaminari, who he kind of just scolds. And despite having reassured and given advice to Shinso, it's pretty clear he's still beating himself up about how he initially failed at correctly using the capture bandages, and focuses intensely on moving the bandages through his hands so that he feels more comfortable with them. And you can't help but feel the same way that Midnight does here, admiring Shinso and hoping the best for him. At the very least, his mentality proves that he deserves to be in the hero course. Before we head into the next match though, we get the glory of seeing Class B's teacher doing everything in his power not to rip into his own students for not winning. The class, already having recognised their weaknesses, still faces the wrath of their teacher, who points out they depended too greatly on Beast and Shiozaki. Monoma, of course, adds to the feedback in his own arrogant way, with the hilarious part being the class just accepts it and heeds his advice. Despite this though, he's not even really mad at the class and is eyeing Shinso for their upcoming battle against Class A. Monoma immediately focuses on developing a plan with Shinso and is a little too eager to crush Class A. And this gives Midoriya and the rest of the class the idea to brainstorm for their own battles. So Monoma can't even help but sabotage himself at this point. Hilariously though, when all the teams are coming together to think about how they're going to approach the battle, whether it's through combo moves or using specific students' quirks as tactical advantages, Bakugo adamantly refuses help from his teammates, much to their dismay. And my god, it would be so bad to be on his team. You'd feel so unsure about his plans and whether you were going to succeed or fail. Yes, he's skilled, but it would all depend on him and how he acts in the moment. It makes for great humour and storytelling, but it would be so bad to deal with in real life. And whilst all of Class A work on their tactics, All Might reflects on how far his students have come in the past 8 months since they started school. Once he goes through all the training and battles they've faced, it's kind of hard to believe it's not even been a full year of school yet and they've changed so much. He reflects on how this is a good opportunity to find their weaknesses and work on those to become the best hero that they can. And it's pretty sweet and encouraging that All Might's looking out for all of them, not just Midoriya, and genuinely hopes that they can all improve together. And similarly, he sees great potential in Shinso, like he does all the Class 1A students, admiring his determination to improve. And this really just gets you hyped to see the next battle against Midoriya and the other members of Class 1A and how it's going to play out for Shinso. However, before that, there's still 3 other battles between Class A and B, with the second battle being led by Class A's Momo and Class B's Kendo. And as they head into the arena, Kendo pretty much throws down the gauntlet to Momo. After being grouped together for being similar, Kendo feels inferior and is determined to prove herself, with Momo gladly accepting her challenge. Similarly, Vantablack challenges Tokoyami in an attempt to prove who's better with similar quirks. And gotta be honest, he's super creepy with his little laugh, and he immediately puts me on edge. So totally rooting for Tokoyami to beat him there. And once the teams are separated, Class B's teacher, Mr. Vlad, begins the match, blatantly cheering on his own team. And we get another little protest from Class 1A with more members this time. I think this little gag's going to run throughout the whole joint battle, with more and more students joining over time. And it's a small but pretty hilarious gag, and it adds to it for me. As the battle begins, we get a little bit of background about Kendo, who's Class B's representative, similar to Momo, who's the vice representative to Class 1A. She acts like their big sister and guides them on the straight and narrow, where otherwise Monoma would lead them astray. Shoto voices his concern over whether Momo's going to be able to battle against someone similar to herself, and this is all clearly setting up for some big confrontation between the two, and it'll be interesting to see it all unfold. As if on cue, Momo sends Tokoyami to scout ahead to find their opponents using Dark Shadow. However, not all goes to plan as Vantablack manages to absorb himself into Dark Shadow and control him, returning to 1A and beginning the attack. And this is a pretty cool quirk and super useful, especially against a similar quirk like Tokoyami's. Class 1A eventually manages to free Dark Shadow from Vantablack, but their trouble's far from over, and he still manages to evade them all fairly easily. He voices another warning to Tokoyami, voicing his goal to beat him, and we get Tokoyami officially accepting his challenge and preparing himself with a new move he learned whilst interning with Hawks. And I really enjoyed this part of the episode. After such a long time, we finally get to learn a little bit about his internship with Hawks. Despite lots of Class A's getting internships with heroes, Tokoyami was one of the few students that was paired with such a prominent hero. And yet we got almost no information about how it went. And this was especially strange considering how important Hawks now is to the story. So this was a great little deviation from the battle to get a little more insight not only to Hawks, but to Tokoyami as well. And it's pretty sad at first because you can feel his frustration at learning almost nothing from Hawks, and feeling as though he only seemed to really want to know about the attack by the League of Villains on the class. And it would be hard, especially knowing that so many other students would be getting great advice and learning new skills, and he was only chosen because they have similar bird-related quirks. And his initial internship actually ends without him even getting much time with Hawks at all, and you can't help but feel embarrassed and sorry for him. And then he's summoned again for the work study, and obviously he can't refuse the number 3. But you can feel the anger within Tokoyami clearly growing, and despite his frustration, he continues to try to prove himself, and show that he isn't just an information source, he can be a hero too. And that he's growing stronger and he has value. And in any case, Hawks actually notices his determination and takes him flying, and he explains that all along he did want to teach him new skills, and that he could see how much more he could grow as a hero, he just doesn't care about training the next generation that much. And it's kind of sweet in a way, with Tokoyami finally getting the praise he deserves and being taken under the wing by Hawks. And he gets the idea to fly, so that's pretty cool. Back at the arena, it's revealed that Vantablack's been tricking Tokoyami from the very beginning of the battle, making out that he was going to target him, but in actuality using this to draw his focus to forget about protecting the other members of his team. And this allows him to attack Ayama instead. He then essentially villain monologues, fully convinced he's won, which is never a good sign. And of course, Tokoyami surprises him and catches Ayama, carrying him away whilst using Dark Shadow to carry him and fly. And this is pretty awesome, and it's one of the best moves we've seen so far. And honestly, I was nerding out just like Midoriya watching it for the first time. It was just so cool. Then, to top it all off, we have this awesome moment where Ayama finally uses his naval buffet and lights up the whole arena, allowing them to find Vantablack. But unluckily for them, he still manages to evade them, with Momo and Hagakure giving chase until mushrooms begin sprouting on them both thanks to Class B's Komori. It's revealed that Kendo's been making multiple plans upon plans in case their first plan failed. And then of course, the episode ends on a cliffhanger. But that being said, those are just my thoughts, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? Like it? Hate it? Make sure to leave a comment and let me know.